A lot of us were here in the Castro during the years of the AIDS, HIV epidemic, or what became that. Some of us, however, actually were more impacted than others. There's a new documentary called We Were Here, and tonight we're speaking with one of the people featured in the documentary, my friend, artist Daniel Goldstein. Welcome.
Thank you very much, David.
So I'll ask a pointed question.
Okay.
Did you ever think you'd be here in 2011?
Nope. Pointed answer, no.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
When did you first find out that you were HIV positive?
I think it was 84. My partner was...
Early.
Yeah, my partner, before the test was out, my partner was a researcher, AIDS researcher, immunology researcher at UC, and he actually drew our blood and took it to UC, and they were testing the test, and he came home and said, we're both positive.
And what did that mean to you when you heard that?
Well, back then it was a death sentence. But interestingly enough, the first thought that went through my head was, up until that point, I'd been doing two-dimensional work, and in college I'd done sculpture, and my first thought was, I have all these sculptures I want to do, and they're all in my head, and I've got to make them. So I pretty much stopped doing two-dimensional work and just did sculpture. I mean, it really turned my priorities around.
So it was like your artistic bucket list.
Yeah.
The bucket's still there.
Yeah.
When did you start to realize that bucket was still going to be there for a while?
Well, you know, when the cocktail came out in '96, the drug cocktail, you know, because up until then I was sick a lot. And, you know, so 6 months of the year I could do my work, and 6 months of the year I was sick.
Right. Now, I remember meeting you when you were on the board, which I then later joined, but you were the founding board member, or I think the founder of Visual Aid.
Well, I was the founding president. There were several founders.
Right. And the mission, of course, of Visual Aid was to keep art alive, help artists who were dealing with AIDS, HIV, and had to make a choice between getting art supplies or paying for medication.
Exactly.
And that charity is still around.
It is still going strong.
How does it make you feel?
That feels great. I mean, I love the fact that, you know, we worked really hard and we started this thing, and it's still going, and it's got more artists than ever that they're supporting. And they don't just support artists with AIDS, they support artists with life-threatening illnesses.
Yeah. Well, how does it make you feel sometimes when you look and you see people who are fighting cancer or whatever the disease du jour seems to be? And I don't mean that to be too flip, but it's like, well, you know, we learned how to do this because all the guys with AIDS taught us how. Well,
I feel proud of the community. I mean, that's a lot what the movie is about. It's called the San Francisco model. I mean, people just dug in. The government wasn't doing anything. So the community of San Francisco just said, we have to take this on ourselves. And I mean, literally hundreds of organizations started up.
Yeah.
And people just took care of things, and people did their own lobbying, people did their own advocacy with their doctors, and so many other diseases like cancer and other things, you know, said, oh, that works. We're going to do that. You know, we're going to go and lobby Washington. We're going to do all these things that ACT UP and all these other AIDS organizations did. So I'm very proud, particularly San Francisco was the model for that. And the movie's really a love letter to San Francisco.
Yeah, talk to me about it. I mean, the filmmaker David Weissman, one of the greats as far as I'm concerned, and he's talked eloquently about realizing one day, wow, the people that were here aren't always going to be here, and now there's a generation of people who aren't afraid of AIDS.
No, not afraid as they should be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll hear or see a young person, typically a younger gay man, do or say something, and I'm like, are you insane?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Horrified, and just, I mean, I give lectures to people, unwanted lectures, but that's the wonderful thing about the movie. It's doing that for me and for my generation. We don't have to say, are you out of your minds? You're not having safe sex? You know, do you know what it's like? You know, okay, it is a manageable disease now, but do you know what the drugs do to you?
Yeah, I mean, how many drugs do you take a day?
I mean, it's way down from what it used to be. It's maybe 14 pills a day.
All right, but it's down from what did it used to be?
Oh, it was like 25, and like, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock, you know, one on an empty stomach, one on a full stomach. It was like you're always checking your watch, and your friends had to be very easygoing.
So your whole life dealt around your
medication.
Yeah,
I remember when I was traveling in Italy with my friends, they were like, okay, Daniel, we have an hour for you to have lunch. You know, it was nuts.
Uh-huh.
But now the drugs now are so much easier.
Uh-huh.
But it's still, they have side effects, and I know that the drugs are, you know, will certainly have long-term side effects. I mean, they do have long-term side effects. We don't know even what they are.
Yeah. How are you dealing with it though?
Great. I mean, compared to the side effects of the drugs from 15 years ago, those were horrible. I mean, I still have like neuropathy from those. But I was just in South Africa last year doing, I do artwork with South African artists with AIDS, and horrified to find out that they were still using the drugs, because they're really cheap, that I was using 15 years ago.
That here wouldn't be allowed.
No, because the side effects are so horrendous, but that's all they've got. And so I did a piece there about side effects.
So if you could, you know, talk now to someone who says, well, I'm just going to have unsafe sex. I mean, I don't care because, you know, I can take a pill. What do you want to say to them?
Have safe sex. I'd say, you know, there was an ad campaign a while ago that just AIDS is no picnic. It's still a lot of work. It's still, there are side effects to the drugs, and you will have this for the rest of your life.
Talk to me about the process of making the film. I mean, David approached you, correct?
Yeah.
Were you the first person he talked to? I mean, certainly
No.
one of, there's 5, correct?
There's 5 of us. He actually filmed 9 people. And David was very sure from the very beginning that he didn't want to have the film filled with lots of people. He said to me at the very beginning, he said, I want just a few people. I want the audience to fall in love with each of you. That's how the message is going to get across. And he did. I mean, he picked 5 eloquent people. And
Present company included.
and so lovable.
Yeah. Yeah. Who are the other 4 lovable, articulate people?
Guy Clark, who has been a flower seller on the corner of, I think it's 15th and Noe for the last 25 years. I've been buying flowers from Guy for years. He's seen it all. Paul Bohnberg, who was one of the first AIDS activists.
And now is the head of the LGBT Historical Society.
And he's so eloquent. He gives a wonderful historical aspect to the film. Eileen Glotzer, who started out as a nurse. She was a nurse in Ward 5A. You know,
The AIDS ward General.
Right at the very beginning. And then she and Dr. Jay Lalazari started Quest, which is research. They were the first company that did research. And so she talks a lot about dealing with her research patients and that how they really made it possible for us to be surviving now.
Was it painful making the film or cathartic?
Yes and yes. It was like a long 4-hour therapy session. But you know, it was so wonderful because David, the director, was sitting probably just maybe a foot farther away from where you are, and the camerawoman was behind him, and the sound woman was over there. And if I started tearing up and crying, I'd look over and David was crying. And the sound woman was crying, and the camera woman was crying. So it was an incredibly safe space. And that really comes across in the film.
Now, besides your work on the film, you are still a very active, working artist. You have a new show coming out, Continuum, correct?
Yeah, the show.
And I've seen now your work for 25 years. I can't believe I'm saying that. What's different about it now? Why should I go see Continuum?
Well, it's work from about the last 10 years, but a lot of it's very recent work. It's a combination. I do several different kinds of work. I'd love you to see it, except it's in New York, unless you're going to New York in the next couple of weeks. There's work that I've been doing over the last 15 years that relates to HIV and AIDS, my experience with it. So some of those pieces are in the show, particularly ones that are made out of syringes, a little scary for some people. And those pieces have been really well received and have been shown in museums around the world. And then I also do public sculpture. That's sort of how I make my living. But that's not going to be in the show because those are huge.
Where's some of your public sculpture now?
A lot of hospitals. That's the only buildings that it's happening. I did one in Hospital Modesto. I'm putting one up next week in a medical center in Elk Grove. And then the new body of work are pieces that I've created completely on the computer, which has been so much fun.
Yeah, did you ever think you'd do that?
Never.
I mean,
Never. And it is such a blast. I can't
you
believe...
you've never struck me as a techie.
No, I'm not a techie. But that's what's so good about it. I mean, Photoshop is like, it's the best toy an artist could have. It's like saying to an artist, here's 100 brushes or 1,000 brushes.
Right.
Have fun.
Yeah.
And you can't make a mistake because every mistake looks good, or at least interesting.
Yeah.
And so I mean, time just flies, and I just love it. I'm so surprised.
In our last few moments, tell me, what is the overarching emotion you want people to feel when they look at your work?
I like my work to feel very meditative. That's I don't know if that's an emotion, but I really want it to be quieting and centering. And even the HIV-related work, I think it does that. It brings people into themselves, gives them a quiet place inside themselves to meditate, to think. And the new computer pieces, I call them digital collages, are very, very quiet.
I look forward to seeing them.
Great. Thanks a lot, David.
We've been speaking with Daniel Goldstein, artist and one of the people featured in the documentary We Were Here. Next up, we'll be speaking with Scott Wiener, supervisor from San Francisco's 8th District, about plans for this year's Halloween and what's it like to walk in the steps of Harvey Milk.